Welcome into college football smothered and covered on a lovely Tuesday. My name is Barrett Sallee. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. If this is your first time, a reminder, this is a rebrand of SEC Smothered and Covered, which was very successful from 2016 through 2018, and then it had to get shut down. Not happy about that, but still, we brought the show back. It is a national show now, and we are excited to have you. Very proud of the success we've had this offseason. Yes, it's the offseason. It's a real thing. Josh Pate, I love you, but there is an offseason. We're in it right now, and we are very happy with where we're going with this show. Big things popping in the future, so make sure you subscribe, leave a review. We'll let you know what's going on down the road because there's a lot of fun things happening. This show brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all things NBA Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs. Every stat, every matchup, live odds and spreads can be found over at BetOnline. And when the game's over, head on to the online casino. That's right. Play a little hand of blackjack, maybe some poker. If you're a slot guy or gal, 150 slot options for you. Head to the site today, betonline.ag. Get in on the action. Use the promo code BLEAV. That's right, BLEAV. B-L-E-A-V. And they will match 50% of your first deposit. Use the promo code BLEAV. B-L-E-A-V. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we're going to go through a lot of the BetOnline odds, conference title odds in this episode of College Football Smothered and Covered. But we're not going to talk about the Ohio States, the Georgias, Clemsons. We're not going to talk about those teams. Everyone knows those teams. You see their numbers, you see the lines, you see the odds, and you're like, yeah, of course they're going to win. There's no doubt they're going to win. We're not going to do that today. We're going to pull out the old Supermotocross notebook and dive deep into the value plays. The value plays in the conference championship odds according to betonline.ag. We'll start with the Big 12. Let's go, West Virginia. West Virginia is plus 2,000 to win the conference championship. Plus 2,000 to win the conference championship. Like I said in this tweet, there's your value play of the year, of the decade, of the century. First things first, it's the Big 12. What do we know about the Big 12? Nothing. We don't know anything about the Big 12, except that Colorado's going to have no shot, despite what other podcasters, other analysts think. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at my replies on my X account. You'll see I replied to one making fun of said hairline. But aside from the good teams, aside from who can make a TCU-like run, we have no idea. Could be Kansas, could be Kansas State, could be Oklahoma State, could be Utah. It's one of those conferences where you just kind of throw your hands up and say, I don't know. Someone's got to win it. Someone's got to win it. Now, me personally, I think it will be Oklahoma State. However, would I be surprised if they play West Virginia in the Big 12 title game? Nope. Is West Virginia capable of putting together 60 good minutes and winning the championship? Yep. If you don't know Garrett Green, get to know Garrett Green. If you look at all these Pro Football Focus top quarterbacks of the 2024 season, you're going to see Carson Beck. You're going to see Quinn Ewers. You're going to see those dudes. On every single one, you will see Garrett Green. And a lot of you are probably like, who the hell is that? Well, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And he's in an offense that is perfect for his skill set. And he's on a team that is extremely well coached by Neil Brown. And we had Neil Brown on this show a couple months ago. If you go look on the YouTube page, you can see it. It's under the college coaching interviews section on the YouTube page. Got a lot of different parts of that YouTube page that you might want to check out, including exclusive game videos of some of the experiences I've had in 20 years in this business. But I love the way Neil Brown approaches defense. Yes, he's an offensive guy, but the way he approaches defense is enormous in the Big 12. It's not just that they go full contact as much as possible, is that they go beyond thud as much as possible. Fundamentally, they're extremely sound defensively because they're well coached. So if you have an offense like West Virginia has or will have, and you get just enough defense, or you're just one of the better defenses in your conference, in this case, the Big 12, that's a recipe for success. And that's exactly why I think West Virginia will be successful. Now, how will they be successful enough to make it to the Big 12 championship game and put themselves in position to have 60 good minutes? Well, you got to look at the schedule, right? They got to go to Stillwater. That's tough. But who are the two of the teams that I think all of us expect to be ranked in the top 25 preseason? And if you're ranked in the top 25 preseason as a Big 12 team, you're considered one of the possible conference champions. Well, Kansas and Kansas State are going to be two of those teams. I think both of those teams will be ranked in the preseason top 25, according to the Associated Press. They got to go to Morgantown. Both of them have to go to Morgantown. And I think everybody in college football knows just how difficult that is. There's a reason we always talk about West Virginia fans burning couches after wins, because they're crazy, because they're lunatics, and because they have the passion that top-tier programs have to have in order to be perennial contenders. And I think that West Virginia can be a perennial contender in the new look Big 12. I truly believe that, especially with Neil Brown, especially if they get quarterbacks to succeed beyond Garrett Green. But so you have to look at the schedule. And yeah, there are teams ahead of West Virginia in the Big 12 odds on BetOnline. A lot of them, in fact. But if you're telling me plus 2,000 on a West Virginia conference championship, I'm in. 100% in. No bones about it. Sign me up. The next team we're going to talk about, we're going to go to the ACC. And kind of like the Big 12, you throw your hands up if you're talking about the ACC and say, I have no freaking clue. Is Miami going to be better? It needs to be. We talked about this yesterday in the show, how it needs to be better. Otherwise, Cristobal's getting fired. Is Florida State going to be able to rebound from roster attrition? We have no idea, but they have a lot of it. Is Clemson going to recapture the magic with Cade Klubnik taking the snaps? I think they might. But am I sure of that? No. So you got to look beyond those teams, those three, because I consider them the big three, right? SMU at plus 1,600. And again, Rhett Lashley's been on the show too. You can find that on the YouTube page at College Coaching Interviews under that subsection. Really good interview. But he's one of the best coaches in the country. I truly believe that. But what does it take to be a dark horse in a conference that is basically a toss-up? You need to have an elite quarterback. SMU's got one of the best quarterbacks in the conference right this very second in Preston Stone, as long as he's healthy. Do you know about Preston Stone? You don't? You should. Because when you combine him with this man, Rhett Lashley, if you're watching on YouTube, you see him. You got yourself a good recipe. I've talked to a lot of coaches throughout the years, really since, not really, but I've talked to a lot of them through the years, but since realignment happened in the late 2000s, early 2010s, a lot of them talked about how difficult it was to even have a roster that's capable enough to compete at the Power 5 level, now Power 4 level. And like for when Utah moved up and when TCU moved up, that was true. It took them both those teams forever to be competitive. That's not the case anymore. With the transfer portal and NIL and all this stuff, you have different ways to sell your program. And SMU has sold it in a very impressive way. They have a roster that, while it's not the best roster in the ACC, it's in the top half. So when you combine a roster like that with a coach like Lashley, you're going to have a competitive team. Certainly more competitive than some of the others higher on that odds board on BetOnline, including Louisville. So you got to look at the schedule, right? That's another part of this equation, is the schedule. SMU goes on the road and has pretty easy road games. Louisville, Stanford, Duke, Virginia. Any of those scare you? Louisville, maybe. But you always got to look at road games and say, where is the pothole? I don't really see one. And the biggest home game is Florida State. But besides that, it's a relatively navigable home schedule. So all that combined, when you have a great quarterback, a great coach, a roster that's top half in your conference, and a schedule that's forgiving, do you have enough juice to make the conference championship game? You do. Is SMU good enough to put together 60 good minutes against a better ACC team? Absolutely it is. 100%. I'm fully on board with SMU being relevant in the ACC because it's easier to replenish a roster and get one that is capable of contending in a Power 4 conference immediately. The Power 4 conference that it will be contending in isn't that good, and the top-end talent, the important talent for SMU, is there. So I love the Mustangs in the ACC. Plus 1,600 all day, all night, all evening long. Shout out to Kilo Ali. All right, Big Ten. We've talked about the Big Ten a lot in terms of the sort of tiers that exist in terms of conference championship odds. It's Ohio State, Oregon, and then to a lesser extent, Michigan and Penn State. And then it's the Grand Canyon down to everybody else, starting with USC at plus 2,000. So I think the easy answer for this in the Big Ten is to say USC, because we're sort of programmed to think that, right? It's Lincoln Riley, it's USC, they got some talent. No, it's not USC. They don't have the value. In fact, I think they're overvalued at plus 2,000. Plus 3,300 is Iowa. That's right, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Best value play in the Big Ten. It's pretty easy to explain why. It's defense, 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 defense. Iowa's got that. They have it for days. No matter what the roster turnover is, they have it for days. They've got a Broyles Award winner calling the shots, and they've got an identity that everybody knows. And they can execute that identity, I think, better than any school in the country. It might not be flashy, but they know who they are, they succeed at who they are, and they continue to build off that every single year. So I guess the question then is, aside from the punter, where are they going to succeed at offensively? Because punter's kind of an offensive player, especially for Iowa. They've got Cade McNamara. A healthy Cade McNamara is pretty good. They've got a guy in Brendan Sullivan who they are excited about too. It's not healthy at quarterback for a variety of different ways, both literally and figuratively. But what are they going to ask that guy to do? Not much. Now, it's not going to be like Red Bo U in The Water Boy where you kneel down 3 downs and punt. But is Iowa going to be effective enough to put themselves in position where teams have to go 80 yards to score on them? Yeah, I think they will be. So then you got to look towards the schedule, right? The toughest road game is Ohio State. That's a loss. Chalk it up. That's a loss. No doubt about it. Write it in Sharpie if you want to. That's a loss. Their toughest games are at home beyond that. And it's Washington and Wisconsin. It's a tough place to play, man. And are we buying Washington and Wisconsin? Washington with like everybody gone, 2 returning starters. And Wisconsin still don't know what they're going to be under Fickell. I'd say Iowa will probably be favorites in both of those games. So again, sort of like SMU and sort of like with West Virginia. Is Iowa good enough to get to the Big Ten championship game? With the right landscape, it's a possibility. It's not a probability because I think it'll be Oregon and Ohio State. But is it a possibility? Yeah, it is, especially if they get into that tiebreaker situation. So is Iowa capable of putting together 60 good minutes against Ohio State or Oregon? Not against Ohio State in the regular season matchup. You play an opponent twice. You have a little bit of more knowledge. I don't think they'd beat Ohio State twice, but if you're in the position to do it, you got a chance. Plus 3,300 isn't a bad bet. Could they beat Oregon? I don't know. I'm not the biggest Dylan Gabriel guy. Not likely. Possibility? Yeah, it's there. 60 good minutes. So it's easy to go with Oregon, Ohio State, to a lesser extent, Michigan. I don't understand the Penn State love, but whatever. But if the value at Iowa is plus 3,300, yeah, I'll take that. It's a good one. It's a really good one. Speaking of Iowa, go to breakingt.com/smotheredandcovered. breakingt.com/smotheredandcovered. You can get this Iowa t-shirt, Tight End University, for the University of Iowa Hawkeyes. It's one of several Iowa shirts you can get over at Breaking T. Surprise, surprise, a lot of them recently have been Caitlin Clark shirts. Iowa fans love that. WNBA fans, I don't know what's going on in the WNBA, but whatever. Go to breakingt.com/smotheredandcovered. You can get that bad boy or a lot of others. SEC, final one. Doing the Power Four. It's easy to pick Georgia. It's easy to pick Texas. A little bit more difficult to pick Alabama, but okay, sure. Ole Miss, yeah, I got it. Fine. LSU at plus 950. That's interesting to me. Team that just produced the Heisman Trophy winner. A team that went to the SEC championship game 2 years ago. A team that has talent for days. And I think one of the best coaches in the country in Brian Kelly. And they're middle of the pack in the SEC and conference title odds. Interesting. Sort of stroke the beard a little bit. Very interesting. Look, the defense can't get worse. I mean, it really can't. You have Blake Baker, too. He's a really good defensive coordinator. You still have a talented group, Perkins included. Is it going to be the best defense in the country? No. Is it going to be average? Maybe. But even if it's slightly below average, is that enough for LSU to be a contender in the SEC? Damn right it is. Because the offense, even without Daniels, even without Denbrock, even without Neighbors, like it's a Brian Kelly offense. Brian Kelly offense is that he knows what he's doing, no matter who the offensive coordinator is. He knows what he wants, and generally speaking, gets the players and more importantly, the coach who implements a scheme that fits his goals. He's very good at that. Now, LSU's not going to have the offense it had last year. It's going to take a step back. How much of a step back? That's going to tell the tale on whether LSU is a contender or a pretender in the SEC. At plus 950, BetOnline and a lot of these other sports books out there are basically saying, I don't know. I don't even know either. I don't. But what I do know is that if they do get enough offense and Garrett Nussmeier does perform at the level that a lot of NFL folks seem to think he can play at, and he uses that great group of running backs, and he finds some of those new receivers and supplements them with guys he knows like Lacey, could they be one of the top 2 teams in the SEC? Yeah. Yeah, they could. The schedule helps them out too. Toughest road game at Texas A&M. Just saying, the path is there for LSU. And if they get to Atlanta, are they capable of putting together 60 good minutes and beating Georgia, beating Texas? Yeah, they are. I think they will be. Not saying they're going to win the SEC, not saying they're going to get to Atlanta. But are they capable of putting together 60 good minutes if they do? Yeah. So that plus 950, man, that is looking strong in my mind. That will do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show. If you are listening to this or watching this, you already know how to do the podcast thing. But your friend, your neighbor, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your aunt, your uncle, they might not. So it would mean a lot to us here at College Football Smothered and Covered if you shared this show with people who might not know how to do the podcast thing. Because the season's right around the corner. In fact, I booked my flight and hotel room for SEC Media Days this morning because it's sneaking up on all of us. So we're excited about it. We're going to get a lot of work done, and hopefully you guys can spread the word about College Football Smothered and Covered, which of course is presented by BetOnline. Have a great day, everybody. We will talk to you very, very soon.